She has sandy cheeks from SpongeBob.
Right, that's right.
Without a southern accent. Go listen and you'll be like, oh my god. That's
So
Sandy.
just hear her like saying your name over and over and over again.
Somebody make
yeah.
that mod.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 354, and it is a director's episode. And Sonic Frontiers, the series' first open world game, has released, and it might not be as bad as many had originally assumed.
They've done open world before.
They have not.
No. You're not thinking of Sonic
I think you're
the
thinking of
Hedgehog.
Skyrim.
I think you're thinking of Fallout.
No.
I think you're thinking of Breath of the Wild.
Are you thinking of World of Warcraft?
There it is.
I'm liking what I'm hearing about this game. I haven't really looked into it myself, but I love Sonic and I want Sonic to succeed.
Right.
And so that's okay.
Right. Sonic is a classic,
It's
like
open
one of
world?
the more retro things, right?
I think you told me this when it was announced, and I was like, "Don't do that."
Yeah, we talked about it, and
Okay.
the first viewing of it, people were not excited for it. They thought it looked like just open world barren. Why bring Sonic there in the first place? They weren't excited about it. But so far, 94% of the over 4,000 reviews on Steam are positive. 94%.
Whoa, for
The
a Sonic game.
The user score across all consoles on Metacritic are all in the mid 8 range, 8.4, 0.5, 0.6, and IGN gave it a 7, which means it's the best game of all time.
So,
Because that's what
so when those boxes hit the shelf, it's gonna go fast.
Okay, those are ratings for a Sonic game in the current year. Wow.
Yeah, which is
Wow.
exciting. There are some technical issues depending on which console you're playing on, like severe pop-ins and things like that. But gameplay, it looks like people are enjoying it.
I think I'm gonna check it out. Actually,
I
think
want
I
it
might.
to be good.
I do too. Of course I do. And if it's super dope, even better. I'll
Yeah.
play an open world Sonic game.
Sure. Sonic Frontiers is $60. It's a new game. It's the full package.
That's fine.
So get out your cash, your credit cards, or even use your cryptocurrency.
Fine.
Pesetas.
Y'all are dead to me.
What?
Like in our retro game of the week,
Okay.
Resident Evil 4.
Overview.
First things first, we want to welcome Super Hyper to the show. We are thrilled to have you here. Welcome.
Welcome.
What's up, Super Hype Ed?
Not much. Thank you for having me.
Just purposefully getting his name wrong, Nolan, after he told us not to do that. Super Hyper, you have been a part of the New Game Plus community for a relatively short time, I guess comparatively speaking, at least in the Discord. Can you let us know what brought you to New Game Plus? How did you find us? And why in the world did you stick around?
Well, I was looking for a new podcast a few months ago. I caught up on another one, so it's like let me look through the genre of just video gaming, and then your guys' was almost at the top, I think. And I think that's what really reeled me in was like, oh, there's over 400 episodes, so there's a lot of content available to listen to.
Consistency is
So-
key.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just stuck to it, and the whole reason why I'm here today is because I was looking randomly at your Patreon, and I saw that there was the director spot, and there was one. I didn't realize I thought there was 4 spots left. I looked back, it said 1 of 5 remaining, so I'm like, let me jump in.
Nice.
But then I realized you guys just add more, so whatever.
Well, hold on.
Yeah.
We don't always. We still want to keep that capped, but there have been a few people that were like, there's no spots available. Can I do it, please? Yeah, so we probably need to cap it, get back to a lower cap because we've got them lined up for the next few
Yeah,
months.
we've got a queue. Yeah.
Thank you for waiting patiently to come on and do your director
Yeah,
episode
for
for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Out of all games you could have selected, like Road Rash 64 or any of the others, you selected Resident Evil 4.
Picked that one.
Why did you select RE4 for the game to be picked?
Honestly, if you already hadn't done the first one, I would have chose that one. But I think Resident Evil 4 is a very notable game for the series because it's the first one that breaks away from that fixed angle perspective and I mean you still kind of have the tank controls, but you have a much better camera angle in comparison to the other games. And there was other games that also strayed away at the same time, like Survivor and Outbreak, I believe. But this is like the first one in the main storyline that completely breaks away and it's fresh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nolan,
definitely a big deal.
you're an RE boy, yeah?
Absolutely.
Kenny is probably not because he's scared of scared games.
I don't like things that try to scare me, generally speaking.
I would pay so much money to just watch Kenny play a VR horror survival. Like RE7 actually would be a great candidate because that game has a lot of terrifying jump scares. I would love that.
No, he would.
Jump scares are the worst. Even non-jump scare scary stuff is too much for me.
I know.
My wife last year got me to watch, I don't know, some random horror movie on Netflix. That's not like jump scary. I wouldn't have done that. And I was sitting there so wildly uncomfortable the whole time.
Ollie.
It was.
I get it though. Like even playing Resident Evil this week. So I've been playing this week with headphones because my wife has been in the other room watching something and she didn't want to hear it. So I've been playing with headphones. There was a time where I was playing. It was night. And she comes in through the back. I didn't know that she was in the room, and I like saw something out of the corner of my eye, jumped, and so like this is a game that is trying to spook you, and to watch Kenny I would have VR is one thing. I would have loved to watch Kenny play this week.
Right, it doesn't have to be. That would probably kill Kenny actually.
Heart attack, absolutely. Especially in his condition. All right, so the game this week is for Resident Evil. At least that's the way that it is placed on the game cover.
Stop.
Well, it is.
Don't be that guy.
Well, it is. And it's a 2005 survival horror third-person shooter. The fourth in the Resident Evil saga and series. It is for the GameCube. And then it was ported to the PlayStation 2, and then to the PlayStation 3, and to the PlayStation 4, and then to the Xbox 360, and to the Xbox One, and then to the PC, and to the Wii, and to the Nintendo Switch, to iOS, to Android, to Oculus Quest 2, and to the world-renowned Zeebo.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that Stadia?
No, it's Zeebo.
It didn't make it to Stadia. It must not be that good. What is Zeebo? Wait, what is Zeebo?
We all know what Zeebo is, right?
Shut up. Wait, that is actually ridiculous.
Listen,
that's too many ports.
Zeebo is
it's on everything.
Zeebo is a 3G enabled entertainment and education system, enabling users to play video games, also connects to the internet, communicates
3G?
online, and runs educational applications. I don't know why it's on that, but it is.
That was year 2010.
This game's on as many things as Doom. I mean,
yeah,
not really.
it is. It's
on
one
everything though.
It was one of the Capcom 5. That was what they named a series of games. They had to deal with Nintendo for the GameCube, where they were going to make some Capcom games for the GameCube. This was one of them. Remake, so Resident Evil 1 Remake being another one, which is kind of big because RE was like basically a PlayStation exclusive up until this point. Like it's kind of synonymous with the Sony brand, or it was. Right, so this was kind of a weird release as a mainline RE title.
That's good lore, good lore. And as Super Hypered said, we have played the remake of Resident Evil 1 on
GameCube.
This show. So we played the remake with Limit Break on episode 191.
So long ago.
They've been remaking they're remaking most of the games in the series, or at least
the core.
Yes,
they are.
Okay.
And they're so good.
And
four is right around the corner.
I know,
like,
super. This was a really, like, you timed this well.
Yeah. I didn't mean to do that, but it just worked out.
It works.
Dustin, did you mention it was ported to PC as well?
I meant to if I didn't, but yeah, I mean, everything.
I thought that was interesting because when I looked at the scores of all the games, that was the one that was rated the lowest, and the reason why was because they did not have mouse support.
What?
Yeah, odd. Why bring it to PC?
How do you bring a game to PC and not let a mouse user interact with it?
Are you double-handing your keyboard? Is that what they...
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought
yeah.
I mean, sure, it has
I don't
controller
mind that,
support. It has
actually.
controller support. 100% it does. It has.
It probably has controller support, but that
Right.
doesn't mean it has mouse. If you're using keyboard, you're using just the keyboard.
You don't need to use a mouse.
I'm
with
kind
this.
I'm kind of an old school purist. I don't mind games that are just keyboard,
gross.
but
Of course you don't.
that's that's a terrible mistake. But it makes me nostalgic for games like that.
Then I got a game to recommend for you, Kenny.
Gosh. Probably has a lot of them.
All right. Let me give you the story, because story is big in Resident Evil.
Yeah, huge.
In fact, I don't know if I mentioned on episode 191, it's been a while, but I read, this isn't going to be much of a surprise, I read 1 or 2 of the Resident Evil books back in the day.
Really?
Books. I
Yeah.
bet they're not
Right.
bad.
They're
No, I bet they're not
good.
bad. I bet
They're
the comics are good,
scary.
too. Yeah.
They're terrifying.
The
they're
lore is good.
Yeah, the lore's good. Umbrella,
Yeah.
but here's the thing with this one, and I'm about to tell you the story. This isn't Umbrella. Well, I mean, it might be, but this isn't. All the other ones were centered in the United States at a specific
Raccoon
compound
City.
or complex, Raccoon City, all
Yeah,
of these
yeah.
things. This is completely different from that.
Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, it links up later in the series. Like,
real
it
late,
ties
yeah.
into the whole overarching umbrella that's over everybody, right? But yeah, no, this was definitely a veer off of
Umbrella.
that plot path.
So, for some reason, the U.S. government is sending a lone agent instead of an entire team.
Yeah, it's Leon Kennedy, bro.
No, it's Leon S. Kennedy.
And he can handle it himself. He doesn't need help.
Yeah,
Well-
he is a whole team.
Yeah, he went from being just like a novice in Resident
2.
Evil 2
Yeah, it was his
to
first day on the
being
job.
this- to being the Terminator. Like,
I mean, he proved himself in RE2.
he just steps up, and he was an actual human in Resident Evil 2, and now he's just like nothing
Stop.
can stop him. But Leon is on a mission to rescue the president's daughter, who has been
Cliché.
abducted by a mysterious cult. And after arriving to the small village somewhere in Spain, you find out that those villagers aren't right. Something
They ain't right.
something is not okay with them, and part of that is they want to eat you, and so you have to survive, thrive, and rescue and possibly romance the president's daughter, who is at
She's
least
18.
close enough in age, for it
She's
to not
18.
be weird.
Gameplay.
I want to give props to you, Super Hypered, for picking the best rainy day game to play, because this week it rained like several times in Texas, very hard, and it was really cozy.
You're welcome.
Nothing about this game is cozy.
Yes, it is, Kenny.
cozy.
No, it's all right to
No.
be
Oh,
like,
here we go.
oh,
He's gonna
it
read.
was foreboding and dark outside and it fit and it enhanced my gameplay. Sure. You can't go to a horror game and then be like, oh, it was
Did
like
you
a
hear
cup
the
of
save
tea
room
and it
music?
made me feel cozy. No.
Yeah. I'm gonna cut your head off with a chainsaw if you don't stop.
Oh,
Which would not be cozy.
well, for some people, I also had rain and storms this weekend in my first play. While I was recording my first play, it was
Perfect.
storming outside,
Dude,
and you can even
yes.
hear the thunder rumbling in the
It
distance.
was great timing. Great timing.
It worked really
That's
well.
probably really great for the church scene when it starts raining at night when you come back.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything about this. Okay, let's. I just shared the plot. The plot is ridiculous with the capital R. Come on, you know it is. I'm not
course.
saying anything. It's absurd, right? Over the
Yes.
top story, corny dialogue.
Oh, brother.
That's Resident Evil, though.
It's Resident
Like-
Evil, and they are known for the cheesiest dialogue. And it's not even like... I actually think I read that it wasn't like Japanese translated. This was just the dialogue they picked for it. Like, like stuff like, I'm gonna kick your butt. Like, he didn't say that, but he kind of said that
Yeah,
at one
it's stuff
point.
like that.
That's how cheesy it is.
And I hope I don't know how far all of y'all got into the game this week, but it even like cushions the ridiculousness up front. I mean, it's ridiculous up front, but get to about 2/3 of the way through and it goes to a whole nother level with a character named Salazar and other things that are happening. It becomes one of the most absurd things I've ever experienced before and was not expecting it to go this direction.
Yes. I mean, you're doing karate, in-place backflip karate kicks to kick a zombie's head off. The suplex is ridiculous, but it's so satisfying. Like, yeah, like I suplexed a dude. I shot his knee. He fell on his knees. I suplexed him, and his head exploded on the ground.
Yeah.
Yes, please. That's so stupid, but that's why this game is so good. Like, yes, you're right. It's so silly. And before this game, it was out there because we're talking about zombies and a mass outbreak, but it was much more grounded. And more grounded because of the combat. You're kind of locked into a certain combat style. It really is more run, hide, survive in 1, 2, 3. This one is about the combat. Like, this one doesn't want you to run as much. This one, in fact, it doesn't let you. It wants you to fight head on, which was a big difference in the series. A really big one, and I'm so surprised it was well received. And maybe it wasn't at the time, but it was. People loved it.
Well, when I looked at the history of, or at least the making of it, the actual people that are making the game, they weren't into it. They were depressed and didn't want to. They moved on. Some of them.
Yes. In fact,
yeah.
Didn't the director drop out? The original director of the game, dropped out because he was like, I'm kind of bastardizing Resident Evil too much, and he went on to make Devil May Cry. That director did, because he was making the game too action-packed, and it still is action-packed, but like, and the team were like, I don't like this. I don't think it's going to go well.
I think I read something about like they had made or started making or at least storyboarding 4 different versions of this game.
4 trailers.
It was a long time.
And one of them became Devil May Cry. It was kind of more that angle and direction, and so I guess that director left and made that. It's just interesting.
I love that.
And not only did it have an impact on Devil May Cry, which is a huge franchise, but it had an impact on so many third-person, over-the-shoulder shooters like Dead Space and even The Last of Us. Like a lot of our modern-day, over-the-shoulder, third-person shooting experiences has this game to thank, which is interesting.
Yes, and I think people forget that because you think, no, that had existed. No, they just use this. No, they kind of invented this over-the-shoulder third-person shooter style that is used today. God of War is a good example that just came out. It's over-the-shoulder. It's not a shooter, but it's that same like gameplay experience. Anyways, it's crazy.
The thing that this game does stick to from the original Resident Evil setup are these boxy tank controls that some people like, some people hate, and I don't think many are ambivalent about.
Let's not call them tank controls.
Let's call them that.
No. Super Hyper, do you think they're tanky? They're not already.
I think they are, in a way. No. Because you're still, like, just on this plane. I mean, one thing I saw on the Discord this week was, which I never really thought about this before, but the ability, or the lack of, you can't strafe. So that was a big killer for a lot of people. So it's like, I mean, on the GameCube at least, or I guess the PS version as well, I just got good with using the C-stick to like look around corners. Because if you turn it all the way and then aim, it'll turn you very fast.
You have to shoot in place. And for a lot of, in fact, for some people in Discord, that was a deal breaker, and they put it down.
Right.
Look, I get it. Yep. Just don't go back and play RE1 and 2 and 3. I mean, the non-remakes, because they got rid of tank controls in the remakes. I mean, I think you can opt in if you're a purist. But in this one, yes, I get the controls being super funky, because not even the tank stuff, but the fact that to aim, you hold down trigger and then move the left stick to aim and then hit A to shoot. There are a couple controller schemes you can use.
It took me a long time to figure out how to do that. like, and never really got great at it, but it took me a long time to get it right.
Oh yeah.
It's weird.
It's a learning process for sure, because even how Nolan explained it, like I was used to holding the left like bumper or trigger to aim in games, I guess, but you're holding the right bumper, or right trigger. You're pressing A to shoot.
Yeah.
You're moving the reticle, and like Nolan mentioned, you cannot move while you're doing this, which I get that's frustrating, but I think I think what they're trying to create, not only with this game but with this series, is a feeling of impending doom, and they do that by putting some of these intentional limitations. So
Sure.
they limit your controls, they limit your ammo drops, they limit the space of space to even carry
Survival
ammo,
horror. Yeah.
and then to not allow you to move while aiming, like it makes you feel like every decision counts, every shot counts, everything you do is important. So you're not just running around being able to, make decisions here and there. Everything is important.
And see, that is a very important realization I had this week in playing, because I'm used to, I think I made a joke, like we were sharing early this week screenshots, because at the end of each chapter it tells you stats, which I like. It gives you like a sheet of like how many times you died, your accuracy and stuff. And the number of enemies killed for mine was like extremely low, and Dustin's was like extremely high. And I was like, oh, he'll learn. But no, this game is not Resident Evil that I am used to. But the combat, there's strategy to it, and it feels good. It feels better to not run and to creatively come up with a way to kill a swarm of enemies, especially if you're in one of the areas that has environment stuff, like barrels or shooting a lantern down to burn them, or even just being creative in how you're, like I think everyone learned the gameplay loop this week of get a headshot or shoot their leg.
I bet Kenny didn't learn.
Kenny didn't. Shoot their head, stun them. You can walk up to them, roundhouse kick them, which again, the Leon just God mode active, and then go up to them and knife them to death. And I really love that. It felt really good to save ammo.
Yeah, did Kenny even play the game this week?
How far did you get, Kenny? I'm just curious.
No, don't share that. That gives away too much.
I won't shame him. I won't shame him.
No, I got in further than I might have, considering the controls. For perspective, it took me like 10 minutes just to figure out how to reload.
Sure.
I'll tell you.
Yeah. You have to aim and then press B instead of A. Yeah, it's
and
weird.
there was a lot of redo things over and over, because there was a lot of like, I'm not good at this yet, die and use save state. So I didn't get as far as I would like in story, but like got a good taste. Some of those crazy bosses, a lot of the over the top Resident Evil stuff.
In Kenny's defense, the first 5 minutes of the game is potentially some of the hardest. Like, and that you don't get that with games. Usually they ramp you slowly, but the village survive section is literally survive for what, 4 minutes, 5 minutes?
I think 5 minutes.
And it can be challenging, especially if you're not used to Resident Evil and how that works.
Right. It like teaches you with that one little fight, and then it throws you into that overwhelming just like flood of enemies. It was a lot.
Kenny played 20 hours this week, but he only got through the village. So like that's where
it was not that bad. But you know who I am at least.
If nothing else, it preps you for the rest of the game.
Sure.
Yeah, is your boss fight the only one? The chainsaw? Is that the only one?
That's the only boss fight that he's faced.
Single boss fight.
You get like 3 of those at a time later.
I thought the enemy variety was interesting. So first of all, this is. When I in my first play, when I come across the first guy at the fireplace inside the house, I said something to the effect of like, that's not a zombie, because the zombies from Resident Evil are very zombie, right? And I mean they're limping, they look deformed, but these look like human men and women from a village, like. Nothing.
And they still speak. They work together. They point out where you are.
Yeah.
They're a lot more human feeling than some of the typical enemies.
That's actually a fun aspect after learning some Spanish, coming back to it, because then you start to hear what they're saying. It's like, oh, they're just cussing everyone.
Yeah, they're just cursing you. Get him. He's behind you, you idiot. I'm going to turn him into mincemeat.
But like, these are a lot more intelligent zombies than you're used to. And so like some of them drive vehicles. They work together. Yeah, like you said, like And so that you've got all of those, and those are recurring throughout. But then you get some that carry shields, and you get some that have
Riot
armor pieces,
zombies.
and then you have some that when you blow away their head, these parasites come out that can one-shot kill you.
And you know what's so good about that is early when they can't spawn yet, you can blow heads off and the zombies still walk a little bit, and you're like, oh, that's such a sick animation. And then they die. They don't hurt you.
Right.
But then later you have to gamble. You're standing there shooting, and you're like, is a thing going to come out of their head or not? And it does sometimes.
And then sometimes with the body shots, it'll just happen anyways. So you can
Yeah,
still-
yeah.
Yeah.
The enemy variety is great. And then you get the cult members, of course, later.
Yeah.
Super creepy. Coelho. The chanting, dude. Like, I loved the enemies talking to you the whole time. It's like they're mic'd up. I love that. It's so funny.
It did feel like they were a little repetitive on some of those voice lines. I'm like, really?
I like
Again?
that.
Sure.
But
But they're zombies. Sorry, Kenny, that we can't get that the zombies can't get it together.
I will say the one part that they're not repetitive on for their dialogue is that there's an actual for the Los Ganados, is that
Yeah,
what it is?
yeah.
The main one.
Yep.
That changes per the chapter. So you get the cult, it's the same enemies, but they change their outfits. So it's like
Yeah, their
it
face
gives
is
a nice
painted.
variation to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was worried
And,
about that going in because in the village, yes, you're like, okay. And y'all know the guy I'm talking about. There's one guy. There's one character model. It's the guy in the first house. You see him a million times in the
Oh
game.
yeah,
They just reused
so
him.
many.
So I was like, oh
Kitty
no.
had.
But they get creative later.
I grew to be adept. I don't know, good enough with the combat. Although they just end up sending more and more zombies after you, and it's harder to take them out. Especially when they've got shields that cover their entire bodies. You have to blow away the shield first before taking them out, or use a incendiary grenade or whatever. But my favorite gameplay in the game was storage case Tetris.
Oh, yeah. It's Diablo style. That's another giant leap from previous games.
You would always have limited storage space in other
Yeah,
Resident
you'd
Evil
Like
games.
6. And
Right.
key items
Yeah.
go there too. So it's like you better.
Oh, gross.
You can't keep anything.
see, I miss the fact that key items are still included.
And keys,
because-
Kenny. Individual
I know.
keys.
No. I'm saying I miss it. If you're gonna do the limited mechanic,
Yeah,
I think
survival.
you need to make it its own thing that
I'm
is
with
its own
him.
decisions. And I like that they still did it. I like that it was still limited space. It felt kind of cheesy that you'd pick up this giant quest sword and have 3 of them hiding in your backpack,
Just
even
put
though
that in
you
my
had
attaché case.
you're like, I can't carry this extra tiny little plant
Kenny.
that I could stick in a pocket.
He's
but I'm gonna
roundhouse
just-
kicking. Okay.
I know. Trust me, the over-the-top nature of it is the thing that made me the most crazy. There were so many times I had a hard time suspending disbelief.
Come on, Kenny.
Kenny doesn't
You're
like
gonna get
video
dragged.
games.
You're gonna
You
get drowned.
gringo.
You're gonna
Come
get
on.
dragged around a lake by a giant creature for 10
That fight was
minutes.
sick. That was.
And then after the fight is over, then you're gonna cut your rope loose.
Kenny,
Come on.
This is a fantasy video game. What do you?
That
what
goes
sound
over
is-
the top, and it goes too over the top.
This sounds
That's
like
all I'm saying.
This sounds like a guy whose favorite game is chess. He doesn't anything that goes beyond the realm of reality. He's like oh my goodness! It's you're a one guy going into a zombie village saving the president's daughter. You'd think that
Exactly.
it's this is insane.
But
Continue making my argument for me.
along with the Tetris style inventory management, which I actually like. I like the old style that Kenny's talking about, and I do miss it. But I am all for evolving and being more accessible in quality of life with the larger inventory. I like that a lot, and I think it's good.
still
But along with
tough.
that, yeah. But then you get the merchant as well, which follows you around at different checkpoints. And the merchant's such an iconic character in this game, and you get merchants later in the series too, and it's just become part of the DNA of Resident Evil. But buying things and upgrading inventory space and guns, I love. It makes you feel stronger, and I know that survival is typically like, no, you're a guy, you have a pistol and no ammo. And again, I love that too. But this felt right. And I feel like Dustin, like someone like Dustin, and like maybe newcomers to the series would appreciate that.
I'm so glad you mentioned the merchant, Stranger.
Stranger?
Stranger?
Is that all, Stranger?
Because
Thank you.
I do have a theory about him, and that's I think there's more than one.
There's 100 of them in the game.
Because you could kill him, and then you go to the next one, he's there. But on professional, you kill him, he's gone forever.
Did you play on professional?
No, I know the
Gotcha. I definitely didn't. That's weird.
Yeah.
Also, I've heard that he's like the merchant in Resident Evil 8.
That's
I'm like,
not
stop
true,
it.
though.
Don't.
No,
That's
no.
no.
That's
Can we stop for a second?
Nope.
There's difficulty levels that you can select in this game.
Kenny.
Well,
only if you beat it.
Oh, okay.
You gotta.
I was gonna say I looked for one because I was like, I know what I'm about to get into, and I need to see if there's an easy mode, and I couldn't find one,
It puts
and I was a little upset about
You're
that.
on normal playing the first time through. Just
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave storage case Tetris because I'm serious. That was
Okay.
some of the
Yeah,
more
talk
fun
about
that
it.
I had because
Dude, yeah.
you've got a limited storage space and each of them you've got squares and you can upgrade that storage space, but still your weapons, the guns take up massive amount of storage. Every health not pot, every health bush that you pick up
brother.
is takes up space. Your ammo boxes take up space. Like, yes, sorry that your key items don't take up space to make it even more realistic, Kenny, but it's fun to be at any time you can click an item and move it, even change its orientation from, vertical to horizontal or vice versa.
And it gives you blank space to work with too. Like you have like a worksheet with the
little
test to
map
do your
on the
scratch
side,
work.
yeah. So I enjoyed that, and I didn't do this week, but I think that fans have made like a mod or some kind of thing where it's a game where it's just Tetris in that. It's not Tetris, but it's
Yeah.
just
That's
storage
awesome.
space, like figuring out how to place things.
That's
which is
hilarious.
ridiculous.
That's really, really funny. Okay, another really big component that we can't skip over is that a large part of this game is an escort mission. I mean, you link up with Ashley, the president's daughter, and your gameplay changes. You can tell her to stay, follow. She helps you with some of the puzzles. And I was playing through the game, and like I had Ashley for a while, and it dawned on me, like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to hate escort missions. I hate those in games. Why am I not pissed off? And I guess they just do it well and don't force you to do dumb. There are a couple spots where you have to like, she's doing something far away and you have to like cover her. I hate that because it can be hard, but it wasn't that bad. And then you even get to play as Ashley. And in my opinion, that portion was more traditional Resident Evil puzzle solving. You don't have guns. And I loved that section. And I've heard some criticism about it.
It's a terrifying spot for some people like Kenny.
I think everything in this game is a terrifying spot for people.
Yeah.
Like
Did you-
Kenny.
Everything.
Did you even get to that part, Kenny?
I didn't get to the part where you play as her.
That's
no.
late. That's late.
It's later. Yeah. It's in
Not too
Salazar's
late.
castle.
Yes, I think they did escort fine, but I would even hesitate to call it escort. You know how like in some RPGs early, like Final Fantasies, where you've got all your party following behind you?
Yeah.
That's not an escort mission. It's just everybody together. And it felt like that from time to time.
Yeah.
Except when, the zombies pick her up and start walking away with her or start attacking her. I had a few places where that ended my game because I left her too far and they killed her.
She's
But
squishy too.
the majority of the time she sticks right with you. She'll dodge if you aim her direction, which or like she'll get crouched down, which is great. And it gives you plenty of grace period if one of the zombies do pick her up and don't decide to like kill her right there and just start walking away with her, which is good because it gives you plenty of time to be able to like just shoot their leg and they'll drop her.
Yep.
So the only thing I found annoying about her is if I did get too far or left her for too long, she would start like saying Leon over and over and over again.
Do you know who the voice actor is for Ashley?
No.
Yes.
Who is it? Super Hyper. You
I
know
mean, I
it.
just looked at. I just saw it last night, but she's a lot older than Ashley. I'll say that.
She's a lot older than Ashley. She has sandy cheeks from SpongeBob
Right, that's right.
without a southern accent. Go listen and you'll be like, oh my God. That's
So just hear her like saying your name over and over and over again.
somebody make
yeah.
that mod.
I'm
Before
actually sorry.
No, you-
I'm actually glad we're talking about Ashley because I think that's especially for 2005 when this game came out, there was nothing that was really doing that. Where you have like the escort stuff, and I think it's also they had great mechanics in there because if she's not right behind you, if she's in front of you, like you turn around and you aim, she just gets out of the way.
yeah.
And it's like that's really cool. I also learned very fast, like you, Dustin, uh, when you first get to the castle, when you first meet the coal people, I'm like, you stay here. And I've played this many times before, and I'm going through because there's the catapults and stuff. Like, I don't want you to get hurt. You stay in the beginning. And then I see the little exclamation point going. I'm like, uh-oh, because they got her right at the beginning, and I just immediately got the game over because they just took her away.
Right. Right.
And I think that's also great because this is the same series that they had Zero, so they kind of had a similar way of having a partner system, but that was more puzzle oriented because they were never together, I believe, if I remember correctly. Except this one and four, you are always with her except for one section.
We've mentioned them in passing. I do want to say that I expected there to be more puzzles, or at least more difficult puzzles, because Resident Evil had been known for the puzzles and really working through them. They have a few here, but they are silly. Like the hardest puzzle that I faced was putting a gold sword on the gold plaque and a platinum sword on the platinum plaque. Like
Yeah,
the little
they're
puzzle
real
slider's
obvious.
harder than that. But I mean,
Yeah, I agree with, yeah.
but it's due to the linearity of the game. This is the most linear Resident Evil I've ever played in my life.
Yeah.
More than the new ones, even. You don't backtrack, man. Like, you have a map, and I used it a few times to see if there's treasure nearby. But, like, yeah, the puzzles are just like, here, you solve it, go forward. Here, solve it, go forward. And that can work, but I'm with you. I definitely wanted more puzzles.
There's actually one puzzle that requires backtracking, which is before that dog section in the maze.
Yes.
But sometimes, especially if you're playing on New Game Plus mode, it's not worth it to go get that. I think it's the broken butterfly gun.
It is.
I believe.
It is, and I already had one. But, I mean,
Yeah.
you can sell it for a good amount. It's just where you boost her through the window. That's all it is.
But that's the only one that's kind of disappointing. And I have one last thing for gameplay. If we're still on that
Hit it.
section. I think this is a great game for this speedrun community specifically. And they've even found there's a glitch called the Ditman glitch because it was found by a person named Ditman. When you use this striker gun, I'm trying to remember it correctly because I haven't done it, I believe. But basically, with the striker gun, if you reload it and then you hit the menu button, it will glitch out, and then the game will be like 1.5 times faster. And then you could completely skip that maze. I'm sorry, the cart section in the mine because
yeah.
they glitch out and they just go down. If you look up a speedrun video, and there's whole Discord communities just for this game for speedrunning.
That's pretty sick.
So it's still relevant today.
Aged.
Because of the differences I mentioned above, I'm actually really shocked this is widely considered the best Resident Evil. Not because I disagree with that statement. I can see hardcore RE fans, especially at the time, being upset about this, like we talked about with the devs, because so much of core Resident Evil for 3 games that were all solid has really changed. Like, a lot of the jank is what makes Resident Evil. And certainly there's jank here, but a lot of other quality of life improvements. And it's just interesting to me that such a shift was so widely accepted and still is. I mean, again, I'm not saying it's not. I don't know. I would have thought people would have been upset.
I have a question for you, Nolan.
Yes.
Do you think this became better after they released 5 and 6?
So for those of you that don't know, people hate 5 and 6 just because they're not as good. I don't think so. I think this would have been great either way. I don't think time or other games made it better. I think it is what it is, and everyone else was just like, guys, stop with 5, stop with 6. Let's not do that.
I think for aging, at least, I think this is also a great stepping stone that led to how they could improve this series. So it's just not always like, as much as I love the remake one, um, because it's for GameCube 2001, that's a beautiful game by itself because of the pre-rendered backgrounds. But I think this and their learning experience with like 4, 5, and 6, that's led to what we have today with 7
Yeah.
and 8, which are amazing.
They
'Cause
had to
that's
change
yeah.
at some point. They had to.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was important to evolve the series. I think I'm with you. I think just because of like the nature of the games, I tend to find myself preferring the style of those earlier ones, but I totally get them needing to pivot and being okay with the fact that they did. And that whole conversation that we've had is an important one to have, because this was popular at the time, even though it was sort of new and in a different direction, did well. Popular enough to be getting remade, and popular enough that it went on to like everything in the whole world. So there's sort of a legacy component to just how this game has aged,
Sure.
that like the game or dislike the game personally, that I think we have to point out and at least acknowledge, because this one's widely popular.
I still think it's remarkable that it did so well, because they were going out on a limb. This was a lot more action oriented than the past.
Yeah.
It's an action
And
adventure game.
Feels like
Yeah.
a completely different type of game in a lot of ways. It really does.
No one, like you said, I mean, we've talked about like the lack of puzzles and but one of the main things is that in the earlier ones, I'm trying to avoid as many zombies as possible. I'm only shooting or fighting
Right.
when I'm backed into a corner. In this one, it's not that. It's take out all these enemies to get to the next area. Not always, but and that changes the dynamic in a massive way. So I am surprised that Resident Evil fans carried over to this one, because it is drastically different than its predecessors.
Yeah. It was a necessary game though, and
Yes.
it oddly fits in Resident Evil, even though it's so different. As like, I mean, we just said it 60 times. It's such an important game because of how it changed the industry and this genre specifically. So yeah, they went out on a limb, but it definitely stuck and worked.
Let's talk about how this game looked, because Nolan, you mentioned something earlier that I think is important to gameplay, but also had an impact on some of the things they did visually. I thought their aesthetics were great. Like the things they chose to put in the environment worked for both Resident Evil and for that whole sort of like, hey, we're going to be in Spain and that's cool and kind of different. And they pulled that off. But there were a lot of places that the sort of linear nature of the rails they were trying to keep you on made them put up weird barriers and walls and kind of give you some visual things that felt awkward or not very realistic. I know that's just a practicality, but I found myself going like, I wish they could have toned down some of that kind of like artificial like calling out of the fact that I feel like I'm in a maze. A small nitpick, but the nature of that like design decision ended up making me wish that they had done some things different visually.
I feel like back then they were just limited. I think that's one reason.
Yeah. We mentioned, but this is the first Resident Evil to not have a fixed camera angle, and so your graphics are being rendered in real time. And I felt like they definitely age, but I feel like they do so gracefully. It's not as, it's not jagged like the earlier 3D models. It's good. And with the many re-releases, and they did an HD re-release, right? So like you can play this with a better look.
I think the PC
very
one looks-
easily, probably more easily than playing on the original GameCube. And with the varied environments, from the village to the castle to the abandoned military base to the different things, you're getting enough of the varied environments. I think it looks respectable.
Yeah, and it feels very GameCube in terms of visuals to me. Like,
It does, yeah.
and I love that about it. Like, if you're gonna pick this up before the remake comes out, I recommend trying to play the GameCube version because of that. But in terms of the overall art direction, it's a stylistic choice, but it felt very. I didn't feel it. It was very brown, and
Yeah.
like that's fine. This is a gritty survival scary game, but every surface was some shade of brown. I mean, later when you
It
get to the
was.
castle and you get to the island, it looks better because you have
Brownish
like
gray.
Yeah, you have gray now. But the castle looked fantastic. I love the environment of the castle, but I never grew to love it. I feel like RE1 through 3 had more color usage and just a better look overall. And again, they had the pre-rendered thing to work with, so it's kind of hard to compare them. The models look good and they're over the top, but yeah, it's a little harsh on the eyes at times.
It's kind of apples to oranges though, because it is so different in terms of how the spaces are being rendered. And I will say, for a scary type game, I'm glad they tried to go scary with like content and not with just making everything so dark and dim that I couldn't see it and it popped up. You know, there's a lot of these games that I'm like, oh, I got to go in and like I'm turning my monitor like way up.
Well,
you
yeah.
know?
And Kenny, the
And
Ashley,
it wasn't that.
the Ashley section, she has a flashlight and the lights are like down. And I really liked that because that's like, I hope they do that. And I think they will more in the remake based on the trailer. It's going to be darker, you know, like more in line with what we have now. But yeah, it was sort of bright otherwise.
Nolan, I like that point you made earlier about the whole colors and stuff that they're using. Because like did you beat the game, Nolan?
I am on 5-2, and I don't want a spoiler. I'm playing it after this episode's over.
You tried so hard.
I'm
to
really
finish
upset.
before
I know.
the episode.
I stayed up till 1:30 last night trying to beat it, and yeah.
But have you beat the game before in the
No.
past? Really?
I've
Oh,
gotten like
dang.
halfway through. I got into Salazar's castle like a long time ago, and for whatever reason didn't pick it up.
Okay, I had something funny to add, but I can't say it.
No spoilers, no spoilers.
Don't spoil for it.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I am actually, I have it on Dolphin right now, and I'm gonna play it after this.
Let's talk about the audio.
Yeah.
I don't think Resident Evil is known for its soundtrack. However, their save room themes are some of the best music in video
Bangers,
games.
dude. Just bangers, man. Just a moment of respite.
Tranquility. Yeah. I thought that this save room theme was wonderful. Not as good as some of the others. Like, what was it? Resident Evil 2 that has the best one, or Resident? I don't
Resident Evil
remember, but
1 to me
it's
has
just
the
the
best
best.
one. Yeah, it's the most iconic, but
It is good though, but music isn't the forefront of the audio scape here.
more
What they're doing
atmospheric.
is atmospheric ambiance, and with the constant groans of the villagers or whoever, which is a little bit over the top, to the sound effects of the gun reloading or the gunshots or the scrape of something along the castle wall
or the silence in a
or the
sewer.
silence. I think all of that is high quality.
I do too.
Yeah, and for the time, the quality of the voice acting was pretty good as well. I agree in what you pointed out earlier that some of the dialogue itself was cheesy.
All of it was
and
cheesy.
some of it was cheesy, and then some of it was just over the top because
Yeah.
Resident Evil. And so, like, the over the top because Resident Evil, I'm fine with. The cheesy, I'm just like, you could have just done without that. Regardless, it was well done.
Yeah.
The music that was there was well done. I do think they leaned a little too hard on, like, you should be scared something spooky is about to happen with music. I know you want to support that with kind of your sound, but it almost felt a little heavy-handed and forced at times for me, where, like, a door would open and the sound, and then the music would, like, really get music-y. And I'm like, come on,
Yeah.
let me be scared, like, authentically. And it felt a little forced. And that's a nitpick.
Yeah, after that first intro, with the 5-minute survival in the village, you know, they could have just done, where's everyone going? But he had to add like bingo night, like no.
There are around 30 Resident Evil games with all of their, side games and
lot of side
remakes
games.
and all of these. But the not company, the IP Resident Evil is massive. Like, the media franchise is video games, live action film series, animated films, TV series, comic books, novels, audio dramas. Like, there's so much Resident Evil content. So if you like to be spooked and if you enjoyed this game, there is plenty in the world for you.
Plenty. Start with the first one.
Well, okay, that's what Nolan says. I do want to hear from Super Hypered. Where would you tell people to start? One makes sense.
I would say the GameCube Remake 1 would be the perfect one to
Yeah,
start.
that's what I mean too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the first
For-
one.
For the story though, I would say Because I remember, if you want to know more about my history with this game, this was, I think I was maybe 7, 8, 9, very young. I think it was the PS1 version. Was that the very original
Yeah.
Resident Evil?
Yep.
I was at my brother-in-law's family's house. I remember I would get a Slurpee and a Slim Jim, and then I would have that game to play. I don't know why I just remember that, but that's like my history growing into it. And I remember when we got GameCube, and this was one of the first ones to come out that year. Um, I remember the very first section of the zombie in the hallway. I was so terrified I could not progress. Like I was just too scared.
That's Kenny.
But the game, the game was so beautiful that I eventually mustered up my courage. Like I want to experience this game,
Yeah.
and I just went through it as a young person. Like it was a big step, and I'm really happy I did it.
It's really cool.
So nostalgia and PTSD like intermingled, but in a
I
good
remember
way.
everything.
And defined who you are. Yeah.
For Resident Evil for your GameCube is $19 used, very respectable, but $192 new.
It should be higher.
Oh.
Final thoughts.
At the end of this episode, we want to give our summarized thoughts on Resident Evil 4. We will conclude with Super Hypered, allow you to have the final word, and we'll allow Kenny to have the first.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear to me why this game is so popular.
Nolan's already mad.
Pissed off.
I think he is just because I exist. They needed to pivot the series, so I'm glad they did. The mood is set well. There's plenty of action, maybe too much. Lots of over-the-top Resident Evil style baddies, and so like props on all of those decisions. However, and again, Resident Evil, this isn't a surprise, the horror gimmick is really strong here, and the waves of in-your-face enemies feel a little bit repetitive for my taste. Plus some of the things we mentioned about sort of learning movement and just how kind of limited you feel. It ends up becoming sort of a feature, but also a very, I don't know, sort of gameplay defining experience. I don't know. It's a hard sell for me because of those things, and because of the fact that I'm not a fan of the genre. But here's what this game did: it opened up its trench coat, like shady arms dealer style, not like creepy perv style, and it made a really tempting offer. I think I'm buying it,
You're spending your pesetas?
but I'm not buying the over-the-top hype. This game is good, but it's not nearly as good as everyone makes it seem.
All right. That's Kenny's thoughts. Nolan, you want to tell him how wrong he is?
It's impossible for me to see how you can come to that conclusion, or anyone can come to that conclusion. It's okay. I'm about to beat it, so let's say I've beat it. I'm escaping right now. Okay. It's a masterpiece. It is. Let me see. Is it my favorite in the series now? Probably not, because I like the old school. I think I prefer the old school tanky style of 2. I love 2. I think 2 is just a little better, but only a little. This game is a triumph. It defined a genre that we still see today. It's super playable. Like it's very accessible. Like you don't have to be into the genre. You don't even have to be into shooters to enjoy this game. You're just going to have fun kicking zombie heads off. I mean, there's a lot to love about this game, and we've went into it. I think I hit on maybe a third of my notes that I have written out for this game. I love it. I love it. My thoughts.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I definitely enjoyed the experience, and I like stepping back into the horror genre, and I think Resident Evil does it exceptionally well. I think with the open village, it's so interesting because that's so different from the confined spaces of the previous Resident Evil games, but it was terrifying and creepy and great. I do probably prefer for Resident Evil the less action oriented and the more survival, puzzle, that kind of vibe. But if they're going to bring it into a new era, I think they did exceptionally well with doing so. And so I get how fans could be like, yes, it's different, but it's good. It does to me feel almost not Resident Evil in some ways because it's so different than the others, but they keep enough of the campy story and dialogue. They keep enough of the zombie, which really, like, Resident Evil, like, in many ways popularized and defined the zombie culture that became so prevalent over the last 10 years or so. And it in part because of Resident Evil 4. So it's fun. I think there's a lot of things to overcome in this version with the controls, but if
I'll give it to you.
Maybe wait for the remake, because they're going to smooth out some of those aging factors while still giving you the same kind of game, and I bet it's gonna be even more of a masterpiece than what Nolan is.
The guy
saying.
that did RE2 remake, which is the best of all time, is doing it, so it's gonna be sick.
Nice.
Dustin, you need to play 7 and 8. You would love them.
But you
would love
know
them.
me, I've got a problem, and I need to play in order.
Oh my gosh, do not play. Go ahead, Super Hybrid. Bring us home.
This is why I love you guys, because you guys have your own opinion to bring to the table, which is just nice to see. And that's what I want to talk about. Like, Kenny, you made a great point with the... Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. You made a great point with the...
Probably because Kenny didn't make a great point. And
I made so many great points. He's having a hard time choosing which one to talk about.
That's what it is.
Well, no, your thoughts were just so, for me at least, thought-provoking, because you were mentioning that there was just at some points too many enemies at points all in your face all the time, and I think somebody at Capcom realized after at least maybe, I think when they got to 4, they're like, we need more enemies, because it was too slow-paced maybe for the first sets, and then that got into 5 and 6, but then today we have 7 and 8 that are, like, at least for me in 8, it's more at your own pace, and there are some sections where you get to the nest of these enemies, and then you do get a big battle, kind of like the village scene, but it's not in your face all the time. Like, I finished the game, I had almost 1,000 kills. That's a lot.
Yeah, that feels like a happier middle ground. I'm glad to hear that it kind of evolves into that.
Of kills.
That's good to know.
I haven't finished the game, and I have 830 something right now.
Oh my goodness.
And you know, I know you guys like the knife. I never use it.
Oh, I use it all the time, baby.
I only use the knife for boxes.
And you don't run out of ammo?
Nope.
Man,
They give you a lot of ammo in this game.
not enough.
A decent
use it.
amount.
I use
Again,
it.
relative. Like, I'm thinking to some of those early games where it was like conserve, look for every little piece. I
Yeah.
felt like there were a good amount of ammo laying around and
All
dropped
right.
off bodies.
Let's let Super Hybrid finish his
Sorry.
thoughts.
I will say that I don't say there's no strategy in the first ones, but there is some parts where you do have to think about your strategy going into battles. Like after the clock tower, you are faced with not one, but 2 blind prisoners. So my strategy is I just go the stranger before the clock tower, buy a rocket launcher, kill one of them immediately, damage the other one, save some ammo. So you have to think about it.
Yeah. It's great. Well, thank you so much for introducing us to Resident Evil 4 and for bringing it to our community. A lot of people played along with us this week. A lot. And a lot of people wrote in. Before we get to the commentary, on YouTube, our poll, 75% said yes, Resident Evil 4 is worth playing today. 9% haven't played it. But 16% have never played, and 9% say no. Go play something else.
75 is very high.
Sure,
That's
75
a
is
huge
high.
number. Yeah, that's massive.
And it's interesting because I think our viewer and commentary align with that.
I already know one person I'm going
that
to
Nolan is
give
going
a
to be
spanking.
frustrated with.
Yeah, I'm glad.
We had some mixed commentary this week. I'll start us off positively. Chris said, historically, seen as a turning point in the Resident Evil franchise, RE4 felt like a natural evolution to me, having played the series in sequence from its first iteration. Nemesis, RE3, necessitated an increase in available ammunition and action elements such as the dodge button. Code Veronica started with the scene straight out of a John Woo action flick that only escalated as the game went on. RE4 managed to beautifully blend the traditional horror ambiance from the first two games with choreographed action set pieces to great success. Looked at from afar, this shouldn't have worked. An extremely rocky development cycle produced an overly long and nonsensical plot littered with shallow characters espousing terrible dialogue throughout a totally inconsistent adventure held up by quick time events and escort missions. The fact that this is seen as one of the pillars of gaming history is insane and well warranted. I'm super excited about the remake, regardless of any mechanical or narrative changes that take place, as it would just allow me to enjoy the game in a new way. Until then, though, it's an imperfectly perfect game that clearly earns its New Game Plus certification.
Agree.
Imperfectly perfect.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Kenny doesn't think so.
No, I don't hate it.
I think the word perfect scares you, Kenny.
I didn't say the game, his description.
I can't believe we'd never. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry. I just can't believe we didn't talk about QuickTime events at all.
Yeah,
I just realized.
I had it in my notes, but man,
I did too.
there's so much to talk about.
There's so much.
Let's do a quick poll.
Quickly.
Do you generally like QuickTime events or not? Super Hypered?
No.
Nolan?
No, generally, but here, yes.
Kenny?
No, generally here.
Kinda.
They weren't
Yes.
the worst.
Yes, generally here they were okay.
They didn't make you do it. It wasn't part of the core gameplay loop, and that's what is important. You had them. They were there. Anyways.
There were a few that spoke negatively about this game, including Jordan, Hot Tamales, Clint, and Bro Jim. Those were just at least a few.
Bro Jim did?
Yeah, I'll read his in just a bit. Clint said, "Wow, given how much everyone loves this title, it's shocking how much I dislike it, and I wish I could say I'm joking about that. I could not manage to play more than 20 minutes with these poor, antiquated controls. The story is fun. I like Leon, but not nearly enough to put up with how bad it feels. I genuinely think whatever this camera/movement system is might be somehow worse than the tank controls of RE1,
Stop
which I generally enjoy. With the remake coming out next year, maybe I'll be able to enjoy this game along with its story, but I absolutely cannot and will not deal with the way this game feels."
I can sympathize. If I didn't have to play more for the episode, I probably would have been in that same boat. I hit an early frustration wall. I pushed through it, and I think once you get used to it, it gets a little better. But these controls are rough.
No, they're not.
They are foreign. They are different than what you're used to in a modern setting.
Them.
Yeah, and I totally agree. If you play 20 minutes and say, I'm not going to do these controls, that's on you.
Yeah, come on now.
Bro Jim said playing Resident Evil 4 for the first time in 15 years was, in a word, entertaining. The game's antiquated controls
Stop saying antiquated.
unique flow forced me into a pleasant gameplay loop that kept me coming back all week. It certainly lacks much of the horror half of the genre, but it still has some great moments that are the height of fun. So let me be blunt. This game does not get NGP from me. Here's the thing. RE4 has a remake coming out early next year, and I trust that they will update things like the controls and weapon switching. With this much combat, a control scheme like this doesn't have the charm it did with, for instance, the RE1 remake. Weapon changes are the biggest problem. Even a dedicated grenade button and or a second weapon switch would have made it tolerable, but going into the menu multiple times a fight was a chore. It took me out of the action way too often. For a guy who can do a standing backflip, lateral motion seems impossible to Leon. NGP to me means everyone should play this, or it's worth experiencing for a retro gamer. I can't put that seal on it. Its age is more frustrating than retro, as it feels quite modern in many ways. Therefore, I'd rather have new players experience the remake, much like we discussed in the Yakuza episode.
It ain't out yet. What if it sucks? I'm going to be sick. These games can,
It's
the
not going
remake
to.
and the original can both exist and be good. For instance, I'm never going to play Resident Evil 2, the original, again. I'm only going to play the remake when I want to play it. This, I can see myself playing the original from time to time and the remake, if it's good.
Yep.
Right?
I actually have a for people's bad experiences. I think that's bad item management.
Yeah, y'all need to get good. Listen to Super Hypered. Come on now.
Play
Antiquated
better Tetris.
Club.
Oh, all right. And then we'll end with Proto Dad, who said, having completed this game twice already this year, I can comfortably say that this Saturday morning cartoon take on Resident Evil is one of my all-time favorite games.
Yes.
Good description.
That is.
This game revolutionized the way the third-person shooter played and set a golden standard in the industry. The movement and shooting, while actually not all that different from the original Resident Evil's tank controls, still feel good today, even if it takes a bit of getting used to. The story starts off simple enough, however, it soon goes off the rails as you make it to the castle segment of the game. Here, Leon has to deal with a tiny George Washington, double-crossing spies, what may as well be Emperor Palpatine, and even a giant robot. But all throughout, this game oozes 80s action style charm through its characters. The pacing is some of the best I've ever experienced in a video game. While not a particularly scary game, it does have its jumpy moments. So even if scary games aren't your thing, I highly encourage anyone and everyone to try this game out. P.S. The VR version of this game on the Oculus is one of the coolest gaming experiences I've ever had.
Whoa, I didn't know that it was on VR, or how that would work.
Should we set a Patreon goal to have Kenny do a full VR Let's Play of this game?
Of RE7.
You would want to go even scarier than this, honestly.
Yeah, RE7 would be literally terrifying.
Yeah, that agree. Yep.
I don't
What's
know.
our
if Kenny
budget
would
for
do it.
pants?
Pants. He's gonna
No, you're just
soil
gonna
it.
build it.
Thank you for sending in your thoughts on the retro game of the week. Sorry that I couldn't read all of your commentary, but we look at them, and our other viewers look at them too in our commentary section on Discord. So thank you so much for playing along, for sending in your thoughts on the game of the week. But for now, we're going to set aside Resident Evil 4, and we're going to randomly select to pick the next game out of the Retro Master list that we will be playing for the next 7 days. Agrrrr. 1990.
Yes.
Okay.
Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yes.
I don't mind it.
Platform shooter.
Yes.
Platform shooter.
Based on the 1990 film
No.
of the same name.
No.
Uh-oh.
No.
Oh no.
Well, maybe.
Well, this is what we're doing. We are going to Detroit to play as a cyborg cop who must stop a drug distributor from spreading a new drug known as Nuke. Join us for the next 7 days as we play RoboCop 2.
And it's the second one. Okay.
Oh no.
I loved RoboCop.
Really?
You were allowed
Just
to
like
watch that?
The character.
He
I don't
was
know
already
if I was allowed
in his
to,
50s at this
but
time.
I did. And yeah, so we'll see if it translates to a good game. I certainly hope so.
I think it could. Sometimes they just throw the
Honestly-
name on it, but the game's fine, you know?
Honestly, this is probably the prequel to the Resident Evil 4 because I think RoboCop and Leon Kennedy are the same person. Just one that comes in a
Honestly.
suit.
They at least made a second one, so it can't be like it was completely terrible.
Sequels, Kenny?
I mean, it could
It's
be.
gonna be bad. Find a copy
We'll
of
see.
RoboCop 2 for the NES and play it along with us this week.
Join us in Discord, discord.gg/New Game Plus. I don't know what RoboCop sounds like, actually.
Just like that.
I don't know. The idea was good, though. I want to say a big thank you to those of you who support us on patreon.com, including our large list of producer-level supporters. Adam, Alex, Amarlian, Antonin, Ben, Brunt, DH Browser, Ellis, Francesca, Gimbin, Jared, Joey, Jordan, J. Robert, Justin, Clint, Nick Nat, Corey, Lawe86, Maxima, Mr. Latte, Sajin, Shauna, Subsonic Demon, Thomas, Unbedavable, William, and Zion. Thank you to Derek for becoming a patron for the first time this week.
Welcome.
Shout out. Appreciate it. That's the kind of jump scare I want, is new patrons popping up. Thank you to our director level supporters, Brojum, Garlisle, Shane, Tasty Yogurt, Daniel Brunt, and of course, Super Hypered. This episode is for you and because of you, so thanks for taking time out, for giving us a game to play, for talking to us, for putting up with all of this and kind of the whole thing. We're appreciative.
I'm more than happy to do it, and I'm very happy to be here with you guys.
Which, by the way, if anyone's watching the video episode, Super Hypered has a beard to rival Kenny's. So.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think I'm beat here, actually.
You might
I'm not
be.
as
I
big
think
as
I-
I've ever been, but he's got a good beard game for sure.
I also beat Nolan in the hair game.
You did.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
he's got it on both fronts.
I'm going to back
Oh, yeah.
out, but yeah.
You got a ways to go.
yeah,
sir.
yeah.
You can follow us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, YouTube. All of those links are in the show notes below. Super Hypered, where do you want them? If you want them to follow you and find you online?
They could reach out to me in the Discord,
All right.
or I'm on PlayStation as well.
What's your
I
handle on
don't really
PlayStation?
have same as here, Super Hyper.
Nice.
Super
I've had
Hyper.
this. If you want a fun fact, I've had this for over 15 years. This is my original one for
He's the-
RuneScape.
He's the OG Super Hypered.
It's
Don't
nice
get it
when you get a
twisted.
handle and can like hold on to it. It's great.
Yes. Well,
Listen-
maybe not.
Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you are the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play RoboCop 2. Until then, I'm still Ashley.
I'm still absolutely terrified and bad.
I'm Lord Salazar.
And that is Super Hypered. You want to do any kind of fun name or...
And I'm Leon.
Yes, you
Main
are.
character.
S. Kennedy. And this has been New Game Plus.